welcome back to another tutorial on Chinese philosophy and theory. We're going to be talking here about the body kingdom. The concept of the body kingdom essentially is the idea that each of the organs and functions of the meridians are part of the officials in the kingdom of the body, or the king's court, so to speak. So we're going to start off here with the element of fire. And as I mentioned in the last slideshow, that fire has its two organs and also it's got two functions. We're going to start off with the heart. The heart is the emperor or empress of the kingdom. In Chinese medicine, the heart is considered the very most important organ. It is our connection to destiny. It's our connection to the heavens. It's our connection to the earth. The heart is primary. The heart is the organ that has and holds the divine. And through the divine, we can extrapolate what is our destiny? What is our experience for this life? What is our embodiment of heaven here on earth? The heart is the yin organ associated with the fire element. Its partner is the small intestine, so it's yang. Every set of officials are paired with yin and yang. So the small intestine is going to be the yang official of the fire element. It is called the separator of pure from impure. Now, if we think about what the small intestine does from a physiological perspective, the small intestine really works to keep in nutrients that we need, keep in minerals, keep in vitamins, keep in all that good stuff that we need to sustain our body. And then it processes for release that which we don't need, right? It passes it on to the large intestine for removal. So this idea of purity is very important for the small intestine. The small intestine, because of this, is known as well as a transformer. It has this quality of transformation that it's associated with it. It transforms, and it can transform pure into impure into pure, which is pretty special. The alchemy of transformation is really another way that I like to think of the small intestine. It has a huge role in that. So then we move on to our functions. We're going to start with the yin function, the heart protector. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the heart protector can be anatomically thought of as the pericardium, the sac that surrounds the heart and literally protects it from blows. And we often think of the heart protector as well as protecting the heart from the emotional blows. It protects it from heartbreak. It protects it from falling apart in times of heartbreak, because if the emperor or empress falls apart, the rest of the body kingdom falls apart. The yang organ, the yang function associated with the heart protector is going to be the triple heater. It's known as the harmonizer. Again, this is heat, water, and harmony, respiration, digestion, and elimination, right? It's the balance point, the harmonizer of our body. So the reason that we've got so many officials with fire element is interesting. Many schools of thought actually think it's because we need the heart to do its job. And in order for the heart to do its job well, the heart needs to be seated on the throne. It needs to be able to be the emperor or the empress without distraction. So the small intestine, the heart protector, and the triple heater are almost thought of as secretaries in a way to the heart. The small intestine in particular is the secretary who sits outside the office of the emperor and says, yes, this is pure. It's going to go to the heart for analysis or information or feedback. This is impure. It's not getting anywhere near the heart, right? The heart protector is like the guard outside the door. And that guard says, I'm not going to allow this trauma to come to the heart. on an emotional level. I'm not going to allow this trauma to come to the heart on a physical level. I'm not going to allow anything to compromise the spirit of the heart. So it sort of serves as the guard. And then we've got the triple heater. The triple heater creates the balance. It puts out the fire when the fire needs to be put out and kindles the fire when it needs to be kindled. It keeps the perfect balance of heat within the kingdom. Now, the perfect temperature essentially creates the perfect quality for the heart to do its job. Everything is based on the heart having these three support networks directly suited to meet its needs. Now, it doesn't mean that the small intestine is less important than the heart or the heart protector is less important than the heart. They all have importance. The body kingdom works as a unit. Every organ has an official role that it fulfills. And if it doesn't fulfill that role, if it's not able to fulfill that role, the rest of the kingdom needs to take over to do that. The rest of the kingdom can't focus on its individual roles if it has to do the roles of others. So the body kingdom working in its optimal state is dependent upon each of the organs and functions showing up as the officials that they are to do their job. We're going to move on next to the metal element. Now, the metal element has a specific relationship with the fire element. Fire, of course, controls metal. We know that. The lungs are specifically connected with our heart. And that's because, of course, of their proximity. They're both in the upper jiao, the top part of the heating system. They're both related to this receipt of something from heaven. What the lungs receive is pure heavenly chi. What the heart receives is the divine, our destiny. So the lungs are the yin organ, and they are the receiver of pure heavenly chi. The large intestine is the yang organ. The large intestine is sometimes called the official of drainage and dregs, but I like to refer to it as the great eliminator. It is the releaser. It lets go of that which doesn't serve. So the metal organs have a particular relationship with both receiving and releasing. It's very special that these officials are doing their job throughout our day experience, because during that time, we need to be able to experience our day with newness, new energy coming in, as well as old energy being able to be released and leaving our body. We move on next to the water element. And the water element holds the bladder and the kidneys. The kidneys are going to be our yin element here, the yin component. They're the controller of the waterways. The kidneys determine the level of the waterways. The bladder, the yang component, is the minister of the reservoirs. It controls the reservoirs, what's inside the reservoirs. And if we think about the bladder, it is really just a reservoir, right? We've already talked about the kidneys and their connection to purity. And that's really important with the water element. And if you think about water in nature, a healthy state of water is going to be a state where there's flow in the water. The water is clear and life is able to sustain in that water, right? It's a lot healthier than water that's really mucky and not moving and stagnant. It starts to smell and breed things that we might not want to create lots of, like mosquitoes, right? It's important to know that in China, the being who controlled the waterways was essentially the being who controlled the city or the country. So that's very important to really kind of take in. Again, we know that water has this connection to essence. And so the importance of the water element, the bladder and the kidneys, controlling the waterways, maintaining the reservoirs, is really related to essence. We haven't talked about yet is that the kidneys and the bladder are actually thought to be in control as well of the creative process, including the reproductive process. The reproductive process comes from the essence. So they serve a really important role there as well. Okay, so up next, we've got the wood element. We've got our yin organ, which is going to be the liver. We've got our yang organ, which is going to be the gallbladder. Now, the liver is known as the architect. The liver takes the plan directly from the heart and architects it into the most beautiful blueprint of our creation, right? Our existence, our experience, our life. It's this beautiful blueprint. The liver is in charge of that, which again is why it's so important for us to be asleep during the time when the liver is at its peak. Now, the gallbladder is a general contractor. The gallbladder takes the plans, those blueprints from the liver, and puts them into motion. It transports them to all of the other officials and said, hey, this is how we're going to have the most optimal experience as a body kingdom, as beautiful you. And they work together. The architect and the general contractor are often talking to each other as things come up. The gallbladder is also known as the decision maker, right? So the general contractor in the gallbladder, it has to be able to quickly make decisions. It has to be able to quickly say, this is the new direction we're going based upon what happened here. Now, again, you can see why it's so important for our body to sleep during this time. This is not our brain, okay? We have this intelligence within us, no doubt. But this is our body. Our body has its own intelligence as well. Our body knows what to do to stay alive without our intellect being overstimulated. Finally, we're going to talk about the earth element. We've got the spleen, which is the yin organ, and the stomach, which is the yang organ. The stomach is the rottener and ripener of food. It's really the rottener and ripener of nourishment. So it is the process of digestion of food, of information, of emotion. It's basically the place in which we process that which we receive, that which we experience, not just from the outside world, but also from our inside world, also from our brain. So if we're chewing on an idea for a long period of time, if we're ruminating on something, if we're worrying about something, that's the stomach. It is over rotting and ripening. We need things to move forward. We need the stomach to process through those things as quickly as it can. We need our metabolism to be in an optimal state so that we can continue to move forward in our experience. The spleen is the transportation minister. It is the official in which things move from one part of the body to another part of the body. It's often thought of, if we think of a distribution center, where something is processed, food is processed, let's say, then the spleen are the trucks that take the food to the grocery stores. So they take the information that we process, they take the emotion that we process, they distribute it through the kingdom and say, right now we're processing grief. We're in a place of sadness. We had a big loss. And they move that throughout the kingdom so that the kingdom can accommodate, the kingdom can adjust, the kingdom can pivot into grief as long as that grief is serving. The kingdom says, yes, it's okay to feel that because we're processing through it. We are not ignoring it. We're not being stagnant with it. We're not pushing it away. And we're not staying in it, right? So the officials, you can start to get a handle of how the officials all work together, how the officials start to communicate with each other, how they each have a role to play, and how that role leads to our optimal health, well-being, and consciousness as a body kingdom. We have to remember that each part of us is connected. So each of the elements within us is connected. Each of the officials within us is connected. And each part of our being, every cell of our being is connected. When our body kingdom is operating in a way that creates alignment, in a way that is aligned with our destiny, in a way that is aligned with the divine, then we have a great opportunity to feel our very best because our internal organs are going to function at their very best. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I know this is a lot of information and it's a difficult concept to grasp at first, especially when in Western society we're thinking about the organs being physiological and only doing a physiological function. And here we are going back to ancient Chinese medicine and Taoism and saying they didn't just do it physiologically, they did it emotionally, they did it intellectually, and they're doing it on all levels for us. They're doing it spiritually as well. It's definitely a shift in mindset, but I think it's a concept that's really worth considering and really worth spending time with to get to know the elements a little bit better and to get to know yourself a little bit better.